accessible.
Yeah, let me see that from 3D.
Right.
That's great.
And that's where you're gonna want to go up to the 4th floor. Okay, and that's
So
where the access
Noah,
point's gonna.
what's the beat?
I heard some runner got out of juvie today.
I heard she's eager to run.
She's been gone a long time.
I also heard she's sorry.
Maybe she learned something while she was away.
Maybe.
Fate is back, baby. The #1 freerunner with a tear tattoo underneath her right eye is back for more running across rooftops. Mirror's Edge Catalyst is a reboot of the original Mirror's Edge, developed by DICE and published by EA Games, and is available on the Xbox One, PS4 and PC. I'm your host, Paper Sharps, for today, and I'm going to review Mirror's Edge Catalyst for Xbox One. The game costs €59.99 or dollars depending on where you buy it, and the runtime to complete it is about 12 hours finishing the main game, 15 to 20 hours doing all side quests and activities, and possibly even more if you collect everything and perfect all the times. For this review I will try out a new system which I may or may not include in future reviews called Yay or Nay. I will go briefly through all the things such as presentation, gameplay and story, description wise, and afterwards say what I think is yay, so good, or nay, not so good. Let's start off with the presentation. What is yay about the presentation in graphics and audio is that the audio, or the soundtrack basically, has the same sci-fi dystopian feel as the original. It feels like you're in a city that looks absolutely stunning, but deep down you know there's no real freedom besides running in the whole city. The whole color of white gives you this sterile feeling that there's no room for creativity, no room for freedom whatsoever, and everything is set down for you. Another yay is that the graphics are shiny and Fate looks amazing during cutscenes. The bright colors for me still pretty much work. I ask myself if they still do work because some people think they're too bright. I think it's Mirror's Edge's own original style and I personally love it. Some nays when it comes to presentation though include that the faces are sometimes a bit blurry up close in game. There are some lip sync issues when looking into a mirror, or basically there's no lip moving at all when you're looking into a mirror because they did not animate that. Overall, the presentation of the game is on point and the small issues that you see here and there are not that big of a deal. Moving on to the narrative aspects of the game, including the story and the characters, we'll have a quick descriptive look about what's going on in Mirror's Edge Catalyst. Mirror's Edge Catalyst is a reboot of the first original Mirror's Edge with some ties in story, but overall the whole game rebooted everything from the ground up, so all things that are the same are coincidences and not causes or effects or whatever from the original game. The City of Glass knows division of low caste, middle caste and high caste into which you are born and which determines your status and future job. Jobs are assigned by the conglomerate in the city, groups of companies which basically rule the city. Freerunners do jobs off the grid, mostly information related. As long as they don't bother authorities, the authorities don't bother with them. At least that was the case before the game started. Fate runs her first job out of jail and finds a corporate spy stealing from Krugersack, the biggest security company in the City of Glass. She steals the data the spy tries to steal because he's curious, and she gets into trouble in the process. A story of conspiracy follows as Fate needs to find out what the data means, what Krugersack is up to, and who she can trust as she shifts from one friend to another. The overall feel and city where the story is set in feels cool, feels grand, feels conspiracy-esque, but the story itself, as I will explain in the next nays, just is a little bit lackluster. Because despite the original having somewhat of a weird and quick ending, that game did have a feeling of suspense, mystery and conspiracy. This game lacks such a feeling and tries to reach those levels, but the uninspired script and boring voice acting do not do a lot to immerse you into a deep and dark story. Why Fate went to jail in the first place is also a mystery, and according to the loading screens, it's explained in the comic exordium. Of course, EA. Don't bother trying to explain it in the game itself, while you can sell some comics along the side. Another thing that kind of annoyed me is that there's no dynamic dialogue whatsoever whilst walking around in the world. The characters keep repeating the same line over and over if you don't get on with the objective right away. It's like you're playing an old installment of the Elder Scrolls or something. They repeat it a lot. Also, the biggest nay for me story-wise is that the writing of dialogue is sometimes just horrible.
It'll be the greatest run ever.
If I live. Well, there's no time like the present. Any last advice?
Don't die.
What she said.
Moving on quickly to the characters, where we will talk about 3 characters as there are many more. We have Fate as the main character, which we basically know the most about. We have Icarus, who is the newbie on the team, but also the rival of Fate, as he's never been caught so far, and is the rising star. And we have Noah, which is the boss of Fate, and basically the all-time friend. Some big yays character-wise, that some characters are pretty interesting, such as the dark-skinned chick, takes everything literally, yet is very genius at the same time. It's a nice refreshment after the Ghostbusters trailer where the dark-skinned chick yelled church stuff. Noah is also pretty cool with his caring attitude for Fate and his runners. And so is his polar opposite Rebecca Tane, who wants to overthrow the high caste and does not shun violence. All in all, the cast of characters is pretty rich, and if it wasn't for the bad writing every now and then, I think the characters would have carried the story more than they do right now. Moving on to the gameplay aspects of the game, we're gonna talk about gameplay in general, as well as replayability. Gameplay consists of running, and running works mostly via the shoulder buttons of your controller and the triggers. Shoulder button L plus the thumbstick L is for free running, while trigger L is for a safety roll. Y and X are for combat moves, heavy and light in this case respectively. And if you combine these together, you get free running combat, traversal combat, which you will need to defeat enemies. There's a skill system in the game with points for movement, combat and gear, where movement points give you actual new free running move plus bonuses. Combat points give you damage bonuses on enemy types, as well as health upgrades and a few special moves. Quick note here, your stamina meter in the game is basically your health. If you run out of stamina, you die. And finally, gear points unlock certain items for movement, combat and disruption of enemies. Most of them are story related. There are also a shit ton of collectibles in the game, which you can collect to gain XP. So big yays gameplay wise that the free running gameplay flows nicely despite some extremely precise moments such as nailing wall runs. There's a free roam system of missions. You can choose to do the main quest, some side quests or activities. It's pretty neat all in all because you can just chill out in the city and choose what to do. The skill system is a nice addition in my opinion that keeps you busy with doing side stuff to become stronger before you continue on the story. It's very traditional, but not as most reviews say that bad. Combined, the open world RPG system makes the game a bit more dynamic and definitely adds a lot more playtime. There's also the possibility to work with user-generated content, and it's a nice way to connect with friends. You can, for example, do time trials other people created, or you can create your own time trials and upload them for others to play. There's also this cool little gimmick where you can hack billboards and put your personal logo up on a billboard to show in other people's games. It's a small detail but cool nonetheless. Another amazing aspect of the gameplay is the mag rope. Whereas in Assassin's Creed the hook thingy felt a little bit gimmicky because you can climb pretty easily, it adds a lot to the gameplay over here. It cannot be used everywhere, but it adds so much in terms of cutting down time on time trials or narrowly escaping enemies when you do find a spot to mag rope on. It's really well done. Take note, Assassin's Creed. Finally, grid nodes, one of the activities, are amazingly fun. These tower-like areas open up fast travel, which you do by traversing a huge server room to hack a panel. This is where Mirror's Edge shines. When the pressure to think fast is off, the gameplay is a lot of fun and just looks beautiful. Despite the fact that a lot of things gameplay wise are good, there are also a couple of nays. First of all, the skill system is not as bad as it sounds, but I do feel it's weird in some aspects that basic moves from the first game need to be unlocked right now, such as a skill roll. How the hell do you even be a well-known freerunner without knowing how to safely roll after a long fall? It just breaks the consistency a bit. Next to that, there's not a lot of side quests and it's mostly activities which are almost all varieties of the same type. Have a look at a few of these. We have the dashes, which are basically speed runs through checkpoint A, B, C, etc. We have a fragile package delivery, where you need to bring a package from A to B without breaking it whilst the timer runs down. We have the diversion, where you also go from A to B to C, etc. But this time you need to lure enemies. And almost all activities are a variety of this idea, going from A to B time-wise. Another critical point gameplay-wise is that the combat often feels clunky due to awkward level design, because whereas you feel free outside of missions, during missions there's not a lot of wiggle room for movement, especially in buildings. It's understandable, but just don't let us fight in tight spaces then. The melee also has zero reach, which means you have to use the environment. I do like this idea, but this often ends up in you doing the same jump 10 times until the area is clear of enemies who keep falling for your high jump kick. And that brings me to the obligatory combat sections. The whole game revolves around running. Running. Yet still they put sections in where you have to get rid of enemies. So much for being pacifist when throwing a Kruger-Sack soldier off a roof down to his death. Moving on to the replayability of the game, the final section of gameplay. I would say if you're into high scores and perfecting times, this game is for you. There are also some extra side missions after finishing the story, but there are not a lot of side quests, which is a big nay for me, because if you want to make this open world game, at least put some missions in as well, and not only activities which are all varieties of the same thing, because it's mainly speed runs and point A to B runs now. The biggest nay for replayability for me is that the controls are really precise and still fuck up in some respects. This makes high scores and perfecting times a test of patience as much as a test of training your skill. Loading times are a pain as well, so consider you will die a lot, this is a big turnoff. After everything has been said and done, we need to make a conclusion. Is Mirror's Edge Catalyst fun? If you played the original, it feels pretty much the same but bigger and better. Getting into a running flow feels liberating as always, so much more than in, for example, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed. I am conflicted on the matter of Mirror's Edge being open world and RPG-ish now though, because it adds a lot more gameplay time and certainly adds to the fun factor, but it does not necessarily add that much more quality game time, something open world games often suffer under. Sure, I had a lot of fun running on roofs and even doing some activities and speedruns. But there are so many now and they're so much the same. With a high learning curve even for people who played the original, this makes it hard to go back and complete everything sometimes. Dying and waiting on the loading screen, where fate pushes out her final breath, feels like a shrug at some points. In a way, I think I preferred the short and sweet version of the original, focused on style and story, and the whole philosophy of running as a form of freedom instead of being focused on volume of content and a big city which brings you supposed freedom. The fact that the grid knows activities that basically require not a lot of quick thinking are more fun besides running with quick thinking around freely makes you think about this matter. An open world with more actual side quests, less collectibles or more orc type ones, and a less linear story would have made this game a lot more fun in my opinion. That said, the gameplay feels really good. It has some issues with its focus on combat and close level designs in the story, but running through the city felt like soaring through the sky as Neo once more. Mirror's Edge is something unique with a lot of potential, and this game feels like a good experiment for the series. Sometimes experiments just don't work out as perfectly as you want them to. I'm excited to see what DICE will do with the series in the future. My advice is to wait until the game drops to 20 or 30 euros, then pick it up. In the end, Mirror's Edge Catalyst gets a 7 out of 10 for me. Hey guys and girls, I hope you've enjoyed this review of Mirror's Edge Catalyst. As you know, Feed Me Pixels is more than just YouTube with reviews. We have a website where you can hang out for more reviews and opinion pieces in written form. You can go over to our Twitch to check out streamers daily, and you can hop over to our Discord for some friendly chit chats with like-minded people. And we also have a Patreon in case you want to support us directly. I was your host, Paper Sharps for today. I'll see you next time.